It has now been 10 years since one of the biggest debt crises in the history of time, when the mortgage market collapsed and caused a huge financial meltdown all over the world. The biggest factor of the cause of the crash was people having access to too much debt that they couldn't necessarily afford. Even if you had no income or assets, you could still potentially qualify for a loan. All you had to do was walk into a bank and say, "Hi, I would like to have a £100,000 loan. I make enough money and I pay back money on time. All you gotta do is trust me. Can I get the loan?" And usually the bank will think about it for about 20 seconds or so and say, "Yes, that's not a problem. You've been approved for a loan of £120,000. Well, that's £20,000 more than I've asked for. They're giving me more money than I need to, so I might as well just take it." Now, banks did not verify your income that you've claimed that you make, because of the fact that it would have taken more time and it would have meant that some people would get rejected. And that's not a good thing for the banks, because if you got rejected on your loan, it would mean that you're not going to borrow any money, and that's how banks make money. So the banks won't make any money, and that's why banks were willing to give loans at 120%. So if you wanted to buy a house for £100,000, then the bank would be willing to give you £120,000, meaning that they would cover your fees such as solicitor fees, down payments, stamp duty, etc. So if all you did was want a loan, all you had to do is walk in a bank, say or claim you earned X amount, sign a piece of paper to say that you're not lying, and the bank would cut you a check. Now, they wouldn't check what you put down, they would just take your word for it. And this was all good and well until the whole world's economy collapsed and created a worldwide financial meltdown and led to people losing their homes. This also led to the government having to step in and bail out big banks of billions and even trillions of taxpayers' pounds to help stimulate the economy. So after all this, you would think that the world would understand the dangers of having access to so much debt, right? Well, let's just say if you have nothing to lose, you can afford to be risky, because right now we are seeing the same thing in two different places. One place is student loan debt, and we'll be covering the value of university education in the next upcoming videos, but for now we're looking at the costs of student loans. So to qualify for a student loan, all you have to do is prove that you're a student and that you're not failing. You don't have to show no income potential or anything like that, so it's not hard to get access to this type of loan. Now, does that remind you of something? Now you will get money to cover your tuition fees, your accommodation, your living expenses, your textbooks, and of course you have to have the money left over to buy the syrup bottles and the pair of Giuseppe's and lubes. Of course you've got to. Banks are in the business of lending money and getting a return on their money, so if they want you to lend you as much money as possible, they're not really bothered, because that's how they're making their money. And so you think maybe the university will have your best interests in mind, but they're not really bothered, as you have students graduating with nearly over £100,000 in student debt just to get a degree nowadays. Now, if you don't sign up for university as expensive degrees, they don't get paid, which is why universities, instead of teaching you the reality about debt, they invite the student loan company and banks into their taster days so they can teach you the magic of student loans and credit cards and overdrafts. And that's why the amount of outstanding student loan debt has increased massively in comparison to previous years, now being more than £100 billion. And the worst part is that student loan debt is one of the debts that you cannot be forgiven. Even if you declare bankruptcy, you still have to pay it. So even after such a big debt crisis, you would want people to be more educated, or at least able to manage consumer debt better. But wait to see what the second place where a crisis is occurring. The second place where a crisis is occurring is in credit card debt. Now, you've probably seen how easy it is to get approved for a credit card. I mean, banks advertise instant credit card approvals. All you have to do is fill out an application and you get approved for a credit card with a limit of £10,000 with an interest of 15% a year. So the first thing majority of people do is, again, walk into Selfridges and buy the latest pair of Valentinos and a Kenzo jumper. And since no one is checking or verifying your income, why don't you just brag about your supposed income on your credit card application form, just to get more of a credit limit? So you think you've finessed the system. Now, it wouldn't be a problem if people bought what they could afford, but unsurprisingly this is not the case, because we recently broke records and the amount of credit being issued to people is almost 5 times the rate of growth of pay. And credit card debt is one of the most expensive types of debt out there, because banks are making loads of money off it. they can afford to market to you with perks like cashback, holiday deals, etc. Remember, banks are in the business of lending money and getting a return on it. That is why they want to lend as much as possible, because that's how they get paid. These perks and bonuses can be great, don't get it twisted. If you buy things that you can afford, you could get great cashback deals and perks, but statistically, this is very far from the case. So you may be thinking, what's the big deal? It's your choice to be in debt, and banks are going to always lend, so if people want to be in debt, let them be in debt, right? Yes, you're right, but what happens when people borrow too much and if they don't have income to support their debt payments? But some of you may say, what are you on about? Our economy is booming. And that's right, our economy is booming right now. But there is a common belief that when things are going good, it is going to continue to go on good forever because of the excitement and emotion. But what we have seen from past trends in history is that when things are good, they start to grow, they start to boom exponentially, and then it grows too much and it has to be corrected, which results in a crash. An example of this is the Bitcoin and cryptocurrency market this year. We saw it with the houses and the entire economic market crash in 2008. We saw it in the dot-com bubble in the year 2000, also with the stock market in the early 1990s. But so when things are good and growing, people believe that it is going to stay good forever, and during this time, easy access to debt is great as it helps people buy things that they want even if they can't afford it, and it helps businesses grow and generate more profits because people are buying things. Now, you can't predict when these crashes and things will happen, but when things start to turn against you, borrowing too much and being in small debt can turn a small problem into a very big problem, and then somebody will have to pay the price to fix the issue. So what should you do? What we recommend is you need to be aware and understand how money works, because school doesn't teach you about this for some reason, and learn and understand how to use debt in a right way so you're not getting abused by it. The next upcoming videos will be teaching you how to actually use debt, as we're in a debt-based economic system, to your advantage.